What's going on, GRITR family? Today we have Kelly Sayre from the Diamond Arrow Group, and she is an expert on all things life and the meaning of life, and you can probably ask her what to do with your 401k and she's going to know the answer to that too, and how to retire, right? So we got all these amazing things that she can do. She's got awesome skills, but Kelly's going to be on here today talking about one of the things that we really like to preach on over here at GRITR, which is situational awareness. I would even go as far to say she's a situational awareness expert, right? And she goes around, she teaches seminars and all that kind of good stuff. So Kelly, how are you doing?
Good. And 401k, yes, I will refer you to my planner.
Okay, good.
Because you can't know everything. So you just got to know the right people.
Yeah. So you know a guy, right? That's all that, it's all about knowing people, this whole thing. Kelly, we're glad to have you on here. I know the last time that we spoke, it was just an absolute joy to talk to you. She's super fun. She's a little bit quirky like myself, so we're going to get along just fine. So tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce people to you, and what you have going on right now.
Sure. So yeah, as you mentioned, I started my company, the Diamond Arrow Group, in 2017. And the reason why I started my company and why I became obsessed, really, or my passion for situational awareness, especially geared towards women, is because I had taken a physical self-defense class. And we spent the entire 4 hours hitting, kicking, punching, yelling, all the fun stuff that I love to do. And at the very end of class, one of the instructors said, "But ladies, predators don't pick prey they think is going to kick their butt. Like, you get into a physical fight or some sort of a physical self-defense situation, you're going to take damage and it's going to be a tough fight." It's like, so the last thing you want to do is get into a fight. You actually need to be more situationally aware. And then he was like, "Bye." And my brain was like, hold on, wait. We just spent the entire class focused on all the skills I'm supposed to avoid using, if at all possible. And the things, or whatever this situational awareness is, I'm supposed to use 99.9% of the time, but we didn't talk about it at all. What do you mean? What is situational awareness? And so that really just was kind of like one of those questions. You can't go to sleep at night. You're like, what is this? And at the time I was married to law enforcement. And so it was nice. I could go to him and say, what is this? And he could explain it from the law enforcement perspective and the military perspective. And he's talking about all the different books, Left of Bang, Cooper's Colors Codes, you have to do XYZ, there's the Combat Hunter program for the Marines, all of these things. And I'm like, this all sounds great, except I'm not in a war zone and I'm not running to the danger. So, and I probably have 2 kids, a diaper bag, a handbag, and groceries. What does that all mean? And the more I dug in, the more I could find information, like I just mentioned. But again, I couldn't relate to it as an everyday woman, as somebody who just goes about her day and wants to be safe. And I reached out and talked to experts in the field. It's a small world, really, of self-defense. So the big names really pop up and everyone kind of knows everyone. So I'd reach out and I'd ask to connect and they'd take my call and I'd ask all my questions. And they're like, "I know exactly what you're talking about." I'm like, "Great, where can I go get this training?" And they'd say, I don't think there's anything out there. And a lot of law enforcement and military training, you can't go to as a civilian. So I was like, great. So we know there's a need for it. They know what I'm talking about, but nobody's teaching it. And I can't be the only female who wants to not get hurt, not end up in a self-defense situation. And so I started really digging into the materials and then saying, okay, I understand the foundations that they're trying to teach. How can I apply this to my life? And then as I was, casually sharing it with friends, or maybe not casually, maybe trying to overtake the conversation, because I'd be like, "This is what I learned. Girls, what do you do about this? Ladies, what do you do about this?" They were like, "Why aren't you sharing this out there?" And that's really how it organically started. And so I started sharing what I was learning on Instagram and Facebook and putting it out online. Like, hey, ladies, when you walk back to your car at night, think of these things, and just trying to share tips and be helpful. And it was scary at first because I'm like, I don't really know if this is right, But the more I shared, the more I would get comments from all women and men saying, yes, exactly. Thank you for saying it in a way that either I could relate to or I can share it with a female in my life I care about. And then the demand, I guess you could say, grew, and then the pandemic hit. So nobody was looking for in-person trainings anymore, and nobody really wanted to be on Zoom longer than they had to anymore. And that's when I wrote my book, Sharp Women. And basically, for most people in this space who understand this work, I always say it's like Gift of Fear, but the female updated version. Because Gift of Fear, I say, is a great book, but it was written in 1997 and still from a male perspective. Great book. People refer to it all the time still, but I was like, still not a woman. And Zuckerberg was in diapers. So where is today's version? And that was the Sharp Woman book, because each chapter is a theme. Stories that women had shared with me, where nothing bad necessarily happened, but something could have.
Yeah, man, you hit a lot of questions, like right on the head going through that. And I one thing I really appreciate about you, Kelly, is that once you got that little taste of knowledge, right, going through that, it wasn't like you just stopped, right? And you continued to push for the education, for finding out exactly what worked for you. Because I think with a lot of the situational awareness stuff, there is quite a big gap between how I think about situational awareness and what I will do versus what my mom or my niece or my girlfriends would do, right? So we talked about it before. Coming from me, right, being a guy that loves all of them very, very much so, it's not so much about me trying to instill fear on them, but I feel like a lot of the times it does come off like that, right? And then it's, of course, the walls go up and it's like, hey, I don't want to think about a scary world out there. I don't want to think about the potential things that could happen about it. You're just my uncle, you're just my son, you're just my friend, and you're just saying these things, like, get out of here type of thing, right? So in one ear, out through the other. So the approach coming from woman to woman is a lot different. And I see it across the board. It comes with firearms, self-defense, all that kind of good stuff too, right? And so as you were talking about before, the first class that you took was about the self-defense hand-to-hand part of it. But then we often neglect, or we don't really consider, people that have been through traumatic experiences. Like, how does that play into it, right? I mean, I'm not seeing these people immediately running to go do hand-to-hand after a traumatic experience, especially if it is from a family member or a friend or something like that. So how does your approach to that, right? The situational awareness piece, because like I think we've had that conversation before, you're always playing chess with life. At least I am. Like when I wake up, I have a plan to get back to my bed in the same condition that I left it, right? But I started that from even the night before, right? So it's this continuous mindset. So I like the fact that you approach it like that without even considering having to put hands on someone. You are already considering how to stay out of those situations altogether. What is your approach? Like I said, going into that, I know a lot of people probably come to our seminars thinking, hey, we're going to get ready to punch some bags and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, nope, before we even get to that part, right? We are just going to talk about mindset and the situational awareness. How do we even avoid that situation altogether? So kind of talk to me a little bit about your approach. How was that received whenever you first started?
To your point, if I walked in with heels, they were a little confused about, we're going to do active athletic stuff, or, how much space do you need, or how many people can you have in class? And I'm like, how many people can you sit in a room comfortably? And then when I tell them, no, we're not going to do any physical, I actually don't teach any physical moves. I have lots of friends and acquaintances that I can refer you to based on where you live in the country, but I can do this virtually if you want to, much more fun in person. And they get confused and they're like, wait, you're going to talk to me about situational awareness for 2 hours? And I'm like, yeah, and you're going to love every minute of it. And so going back, my approach is we learn best when we're enjoying the learning experience, when we feel safe and comfortable, when we feel like, oh wait, I can do this. A lot of times people defeat themselves before they even get there. Well, I have a bum knee, so I would never be able to kick someone, whatever it may be. And it's like, no, we all have mindset, and we can all use all of our senses to notice and have our intuition be always monitoring. And I can go more into that obviously in a little bit, but I focus on teaching the foundational skills. I say you can't teach calculus to a kindergartner. You have to start with basic math. So this is basic math. And a lot of times, to your point, like what you think about situational awareness, or what I would say active threat training talks about situational awareness, or what firearms training even thinks about situational awareness, is like a small portion of the overall training. It's kind of prescriptive. Be aware of your surroundings. It's, just keep your head up. Keep your head out of your phone. Look around. But that's because most people teaching are experts, and they know this, and they do it it's so ingrained in their natural state and their natural way of living that it's subconscious. They don't consciously think of all the little things they do. And so because I came from completely outside that world, the joke is, I'm L, like Elle Woods and Legally Blonde, not LE, not law enforcement. I was able to say, okay, this doesn't make sense to me, and kind of keep peeling back the layers and not get to the point where I was saying, well, just be aware of your surroundings. I could say, okay, here, what is how all of your senses work. Now, each of our senses has a unique kind of like cool thing about it that we don't really talk about. We don't teach that in school. But once you learn it, you go, oh yeah, duh. With our sense of sight, this is why, eyewitness testimony, or when somebody's like, well, what did you see? And then all of a sudden your brain's like, I don't know. I just saw a person. Well, what color sweatshirt were they wearing? I don't know. I joke and I say, listen, when my kids go to school in the morning, later on in the day, there's days I'm like, I don't remember. I couldn't describe what they were wearing because I don't care. As long as they have clothes on, I don't care about their fashion choices. Yeah. Like my brain only has so much imagery that it can capture and remember. And so it kind of goes, do they have clothes? Check. Yep. That's all we need to worry about. Is the door shut? Yep. Was it locked? Ooh, I didn't look. I just noticed that the door was shut. And so I do sight games with people and make them laugh when they're like, oh my gosh, I thought that the guy that dropped the pen was wearing the white shirt. Nope, he was wearing a black shirt, whatever. And with our sense of our hearing, our ears, I say, how many of you, when you were younger, knew exactly what floorboards to not step on when you came home after curfew? Because that would alert your parents that you were home. I know when my kids are sneaking a snack out of the cupboard because of the door hinges, because I can hear that. I don't see it, but I can hear it. Our hearing works faster than all of our senses, and it works at night, it works around corners, and sometimes it works through walls when we're staying at hotel rooms. So but that gives us a sense of what's going on. I remind people when I'm doing the corporate trainings, I'm like, how many of you know the exact sound of your boss's footsteps when he's coming down the hall or she's coming down the hall, so you can close browser, right? Or close whatever you were working on that you're not supposed to be working on. And people laugh and they're like, yeah, that's true. I do one of those stories they can relate to based on the audience. And our sense of smell, okay, well, that's most closely linked to memories. And, our sense of touch. We're never not touching something. We have our feeling of our clothes. But, you don't think about the way your shoes necessarily feel on your feet until you get new shoes. Or the way it feels to sit in your car until you get into a different car. And all of these things, people are like, oh yeah. So I'm like, if you were ever attacked at night, you can't see them, maybe didn't hear them, but you could feel, do they have hair on their head? Do they have facial hair? What type of clothing are they wearing? It's all information. and our sense of taste. I like to say this one for last and remind people, just in case they're starting to go down the fear path a little, or maybe they've had a traumatic experience, so they're starting to have a little bit of flashbacks. So I'm like, who here has ever drank spoiled milk? And I gotta say, side note, I can't believe how many people in the general population have drank spoiled milk, because a lot of people raise their hands. And I'm like, this is a great example of how your intuition is always working. It's always in response to something, and it has your best interest in mind. Because you don't sit with that milk in your mouth and swish it around like it's a fine wine. You're
Right.
immediately spitting it out.
Yeah.
And because your intuition says, wait, that taste is off and I don't want you to get sick. And so intuition isn't biased. Intuition isn't a prankster. It is simply your body's natural, we're all born with it, response to things. And it's true. So everyone can use these skills. It's not just for women.
So one of the things that all that brings up for me is the Forbes article that you were a part of, where they talk about the power of intentional awareness, right? Like you were talking about, most people have at least some level of intuition, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we go through life, like you said, that intuition kind of gets dulled after a while, and just kind of the mundane stuff, the day-to-day things don't really set us off like they used to. We're not that aware of our surroundings anymore, right? Especially with technology and all that kind of stuff today. And so one thing that I tell people sometimes is that, like, intuition is that muscle you have to continue to work out, right?
Yep.
And I feel like some individuals do have that really sharp intuition a lot of the time. My mother is one of them. I think most moms have a really sharp intuition, right?
Yes, we do. And at least for our kids, we're going to let you know that we have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, she does all the time. Still now, like 36, she still tells me, "Hey, look, I got a more intuition than you do." Like it's fine, whatever. And most of the time, like, she is very much so right. Like, when I was not born yet, but my two older brothers, they went to Six Flags. They were standing in line for like an hour, and then all of a sudden, my mom was like, "Hey, we need to go." Dad didn't know what was going on. My older brothers didn't know what was going on. So she grabbed everybody, went to the car, and like 30 minutes later, a humongous fight broke out. So it was just one of those things. She had that gut feeling. She was staying situationally aware. I don't know what she saw, what she heard, what she smelled, what she tasted, whatever. But it told her, hey, we need to get out of here. And like you were saying, it was just that thin slice of information that she was getting, probably from multiple stimuluses going on, that said, hey, we need to go. And then that saved their butt. So.
No, and I think you bring up a really good point, is we all have intuition, but it gets dull, and it's the muscle. I challenge people, like, the muscle that needs to get used is to keep sharpening, is because when you go into new environments, you need to establish that baseline. So that's kind of using that muscle again, because you're not going to know when something's off unless you go, what are the normal behaviors I would expect to see here from the people in this area? What are the things I would normally expect to see, physically in this area? How do most people behave most of the time? So what would cause someone to stand out? And to your point, like your mom, it's like, okay, Six Flags is chaotic. People are yelling, screaming, kids are crying, because they, ice cream cone dropped on the ground. I don't know, whatever. But so it's like, there's a lot of chaos. So what is different chaos? And going back to, since we're talking about your mom, is moms typically are much better at deciphering the cries of their kid. Are they hungry? Do they need a diaper change? Are they just cranky and need to go to bed? That's part of our natural caretaking abilities. And that's why, in my opinion, women are better at actually being situationally aware, is because we're almost created to be more in tune with others, which sometimes is a detriment. But if we learn how to use that for the good, there's scientific evidence that women are better at reading tiny microfacial expressions and knowing exactly what feelings or emotions are tied to that. So And especially since most of our attackers are known to us, we probably have a baseline of their behaviors. And so when something's changed, we're going to notice that.
And the thing that you're talking about, fear, right? A quote that was from Psychology Today was, awareness doesn't eliminate fear, it manages it, right? So it allows you to take those emotions that would cause that whole fight or flight, or getting stuck in the black and that deer caught in the head, lights, kind of looking like I don't know what to do. It just allows you to kind of compartmentalize what you need to do, right? And so you have that plan ahead of time before the situation even takes place. But one thing, Kelly, you've been great first and foremost. Like, there's a wealth of knowledge in you, right? We could talk for hours and hours and hours about this stuff, because situational awareness is key and is prime. It's one of those things that I preach all the time, and I love talking about it because it does. It keeps you out of trouble and it gets you back to your bed in the same condition that you left it. So, I mean, absolutely love it. So, Kelly, final question for you. So, looking ahead into the future, what do you want the Diamond Arrow Group to become? What kind of things are you trying to get into? What kind of partnerships would you want to see happen?
Besides world domination.
Yes, of course.
I'm actually doing some really exciting things, so thanks for asking. I'm building I'm calling the Sharp Women Collective, and it'll be an online community of resources, because what I've found, again, as my journey, when women would send me private messages or emails or texts, and they're like, I'm dealing with this. Let's say stalking. People know what stalking is. People understand in general what stalking is. But yet, it's hard. There's not a lot of laws around it yet. I mean, most definitions that are legally acceptable of stalking is 2 or more unwanted communications. Okay, well, that doesn't take long.
Right.
Because we have so many different modes of communication nowadays. Any sort of communication, after you have explicitly said, don't talk to me, leave me alone. Any more communication after that, the clock starts ticking. Now I'm walking around with a little bit more fear, and I don't know what to do. And so there's still impact, psychological impact. And then where do you go? Where do you go for resources? And you can go to a therapist and talk all you want about the fear, but they can't necessarily stop the stalker. And so it's all of these things. And as much as I love that media and people are better about saying, here's the suicide hotline, here's the domestic violence hotline, here's the stalking hotline. I'm like, have you ever actually called the domestic violence or the stalking hotlines? They're just a referral to your local services. They're not actually being able to give you a lot of assistance. And while not saying that the Sharp Women Collective is going to be able to say well, find your stalker and have a good talk with them and get them to stop. What I'm saying is we can't control other people, but I can work with you, the target of those behaviors, to say, okay, what can I do to help build confidence in your personal safety? What daily habits can I help you start practicing so that you feel more confident that you would recognize something off in your environment? You would recognize somebody following you at the mall, somebody, watching you go into your apartment building, or whatever the case may be, and start to give you tools, work with you. And so I built this collective now so that women have a resource that they can go to and say, well, nothing's happened yet, but I don't want to wait to be a victim and then need victim services. How can we do safety plans now,
right,
versus after we've been traumatized?
That's
and
awesome.
So it's the prevention work. It's getting to talk one-on-one, because what I've found is being out in corporate trainings is then, my presentation's done. It's kind of opened a can of worms for everyone. They're like, wait a minute, I have lots more questions. Or the women who pull me aside and they're like, hypothetically, if a friend of mine is going through this situation, what would you recommend? And I'm usually heading out the door to the airport, or, it's lunchtime, the session is over and they're supposed to get back to work, whatever it may be. And I'm like, I need more context. I need to understand more of the dynamic. And it's like, here, email me, ask me these questions, but just here's some basic things that you should pass along to your friend, quote unquote, to help her be safer.
So Kelly, it was great having you on here again. Like I said, you're just a wealth of knowledge. We could talk for hours and hours about this stuff. But give people your socials, where they can find you, the name of your book again, so people can pick that up.
Sure. So the name of the book is Sharp Women. It's on Amazon, so it can be delivered. I always like to tell people, if you have a niece or a female in your life you care about that lives far away, just have Amazon ship it right to them. And it's available in Audible format too. I know a lot of women listen to books while they're doing other things. So it is available in Audible format. And then thediamondarrowgroup.com is the website. And that's also our Instagram handle. That's also our Facebook handle. That's also our LinkedIn page. And then, of course, you know, I'm open. Anyone can connect with my LinkedIn page, Kelly Sayre. But really, if you go to the website, that's going to have, hey, get in touch with Kelly. Hey, follow us on social. Here's information about the Sharp Women Collective. Here's how to work with Kelly if you're a corporation or a government entity. I mean, I've done training for state departments.
I'm going to use that myself, talking to my niece and my mom and my friends. Yeah. So, I mean, just great advice. Kelly, we thank you again.
Guys, make sure you go check out Kelly. Make sure you drop us some comments down there asking Kelly some questions. I'm sure she would love to absolutely answer them. And hopefully we can get Kelly over here to do a little seminar for us. So that might be in the works too. So make sure you guys check that out. Guys,
listeners, just make a comment about that. Bring Kelly to
Bring
GRITR.
Kelly to Texas. Right? Bring Kelly to GRITR. Absolutely.
Well, guys, wholeheartedly appreciate you guys being here. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, follow us on all of our socials. Make sure you guys are following Kelly as well. And make sure you come and visit us over here at GRITR. Kelly, once again, thank you so much. Guys, we appreciate you for being here, and we'll catch you on the next one.